So live. Anyway, today's episode is going to be kind of exciting. If you hear something in the background, by the way, that's my furnace. Anyway, today's episode we're going to be talking about something really cool, really something really exciting. Today we're talking about Batman Hollywood Night, a classic comic, in my opinion. I know a lot of people probably don't remember it, but for me, it's like one of my favorite Batman Elseworld stories, because I remember like buying each issue when I was a kid in 2001. And I was like, I really loved the book and stuff. And for me, it was something really meaningful. Something about it was just, I just loved about it. Like, the classic Hollywoodland look to it. Like, the classic film stories and stuff. And for those who don't know, I am a huge film buff. I love movies, and I love especially comic book movies and stuff. Hello. And for me, I just really love this classic, comic tale and stuff. And for me, like, Elseworld stories have sort of kind of become almost obsolete. Like, I mean, now they're bringing it back with, like, DC's Black Label, which is really cool, by the way. But for me, like, the Elseworld stories is so out there, so unique and stuff, and it kind of gives like writers a different take on these stories and stuff. And so anyway, we're gonna go through the Hollywood Night, and by the way, we're going to talk about other stuff before we get into the book, because each book is sort of like, it's not a long comic. I mean, I'll make it long and I'll talk about random shit. I mean, look what we did with Hush. We were reading it, all of a sudden I stopped and just like rambled on about Jim Lee artwork and Jeff Loeb's writing, and how DC sort of needs to recapture that atmosphere of writing and stuff. So I'm going to give a description of Batman Hollywood Night, which is written by Bob Layton, who did many comics, best known for his work for Marvel with titles such as Iron Man, Hercules, and co-founding Valiant Comics with Jim Shooter. He worked on such comics as Adventures Comics, All-Star Comics for DC, The Bat Family, Huntress, The Dark Knight and the Round Table, Hollywood Night, of course, Claw, The Encounter, DC Special 28 to 29 in 1977, DC Superstars 14, 16, and 18, Hercules Unbound, House of Mystery, Just Imagine, Stan Lee's Secret Files Origins, Law, better known as Living Assault Weapons 1 through 6, Legends of DC Universe 80-page giant in 2000, Power Company Manhunter, Secret Society of Supervillains, Superboy 222 to 233, Superman Family 182, The Unexpected, and World's Finest Comics, Green Arrow 251. He mostly did like a lot of work for Marvel. Like, he did some for DC, but he did a lot more for Marvel and stuff. And I think it's why Hollywood Night is so different and stuff. For me, I really like his writing, and the artwork's really cool and stuff. And so anyway, let's talk about the Hollywood Night. And this version of Batman, by the way, is not it's a different version of Batman. It's best known as Byron Wyatt. Follow the buzzards. When I think of the name Wyatt, I think of Bray Wyatt, which, by the way, he had a good match with Daniel Bryan at Royal Rumble. By the way, most people didn't hear me mention it, but I really like his new look, the Fiend, the mask. It kind of takes me back to Snyder and Capullo's Joker in the New 52, where the Joker cuts off his face and makes a mask out of it, which was really creepy. It was really creepy, and they did it in Gotham, which I will admit, Gotham had the balls to do that. Like, I mean, you really didn't see Jared Leto do that. But if Leto did that, I would be like, I have respect for this. this Joker. But instead of like cutting his face off like he's John Travolta and was it? Yeah, it was Travolta and Face Off. Instead, it got damage tattooed on his forehead, which I had no respect. Thank you, love. Your voice is hot. So let's get to the Batman. Then we'll get to. By the way, I want to talk about this one real quick as well. Batman started filming. Speaking of Hollywood, Batman started filming. The title we know of, The Batman. I'm 50-50 on the title. I like it. At the same time, I'm kind of like, is this really the title? The Batman? I mean, what's next? Like the sequel would be called The Batman Returns, and the third one, The Batman Strikes Again. Those are probably going to be the title. Yeah, so anyway, let's get to the history of this version of Batman, which is known as Byron Wyatt. Byron Wyatt. It's a very Hollywood name. The history of it. Byron Wyatt is a director, actor living in Hollywood who produced and starred in a number of film serials. By the way, film serials were something that they did in the Batman, Captain America, the Kirk Allen Superman. They were kind of like episodic films and stuff, and I think you could still watch the Batman film serials on YouTube. I think I have one on DVD, and they're kind of hard to buy, especially now, because nowadays, if you watch them now, like they were made. A lot of them are now, I think people can consider kind of offensive, because I think we talked about it in like early episodes and stuff. I think I don't know. I don't really remember, but they were like war propaganda films and stuff. They fought the Japanese characters, and a lot of the Japanese characters were white actors playing Japanese people, and like they prefer to one, like the narrator doesn't help much. The narrator of the film series, and mind you, this is a quote. This is not me saying it. I love Japan. Japan's great. Anime, video games, Mario. I mean, think about it. A popular Italian plumber is from Japan. Imagine that. But anyway, so they used the term. The narrator used the term the squinty-eyed Japs. Which, when I heard that, I was like, shit. Like, did he just really say that? And mind you, I'm just sitting there going, like, did this dude really just say what I think he just said? Like, if you say that now, you're done. So, anyway, the film serials are really interesting to watch, especially if you're, like, a fan of movies, like comic book films. Because a lot of them really you have to give them props, because mind you, this was like back in 1940s and 50s. I think the 40s, because I think 50s, I think Superman The Adventures of Superman came out, George Reeves. Which, that is an interesting case of George Reeves. I find the case really fascinating. It's the same way as the Natalie Wood thing. Which Robert Wagner fucking killed her. We all know it. We all know Robert Wagner did it. We all know he did it. It's kind of like the Pam Huff case. Which, I want to talk about that like in a future episode. Pam Huff. Which happened in Missouri. In O'Fallon, which is not that far from where I live. I really want to talk about that one. That one's a fascinating case. But the film serials were like, they were something that they kept, kids entertained, like Lone Ranger. And these film serials were something that was before television. Like, there was no television shows because we don't know why, but they kept kids entertained, and they kept coming back and watching them, and they were like episodic things that was kind of like a comic book, like the closest thing to a comic book. And I highly recommend watching them because they are like, the Batman one is like 3 to 4 hours, and they're about shorter than the Nixon audio tapes, which I've listened through. And a lot of people always ask me, like, why the hell did you listen to those? But anyway, they were like really cool stuffs to watch. Like, I highly recommend it. Like, they did Batman, then they did Batman and Robin, and I forget which one who played Batman, but the guy who played Batman, I think it was in the second one. His son is now the producer of the James Bond films, which is really fascinating. And so, I think it was the second guy who played Batman. This was before Adam West played Batman. And the one who watched Batman a lot, that became the one who watched Batman a lot that inspired the show to come back, like Batman to be on a TV show, was Hugh Hefner. Hefner had a party, and he would watch the Batman films, the film series, as a comedy because they thought they were cheesy and campy. And when you watch them, they're trying to be serious, but they're trying to be so serious that they're funny. And it's what's so entertaining. So, anyway. He started a number of film serials around the fictional character Batman in the late 40s. As a child, he was born into a wealth, but also sought out the life of meaning and found escapism in the Batman comics. Growing into adulthood, he entered the film industry and bought the cinematic rights of the character from Bob Kane, who worked through National Comics. Rival movie mogul Jack Napier, that's right, Batman Hollywood Night used the name Jack Napier before Batman White Knight came out. And that was really cool. That was something I remember as a kid reading it. I'm like, Jack Napier, that's Joker from the Burton Batman. And the thing I loved about this comic when I was a kid was it was so entertaining that I was like, this should be a film. This should be a movie or an animated series. I would love to see this made into an animated film or a live action film, because the whole story of it is so fascinating, so intriguing, that to me, it's some people, they find it cheesy, but to me, I find it really entertaining. So, yeah, they used the name Jack Napier in the film, who sort of is like the Joker, because he has this creepy expression on his face a lot. And I just thought it was so cool. He took an interest in the property because of ticket sales, and he committed himself to take the rights by using whatever means necessary, using ties to organized crime. That was something that happened back in the 40s and 50s, because actors and actresses were contracted to studios. For example, Natalie Wood. We're getting back to that one. Natalie Wood was contracted to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers introduced her to Robert Wagner to date because many actors, I wouldn't say many of them, but many actors that studios had actresses hook up with to hide their personal life. Because many actors who were in the 40s, some of them were closeted homosexuals. So studios would be like, we're going to hook this actress up with this guy to sort of create this illusion that this actor is straight, but in reality, behind closed doors, he's doing something else. And many people assumed Robert Wagner was a gay person because his agent was the agent to Rock Hudson and other actors who were gay. So many people thought Robert Wagner was gay. I don't know if he is. I don't really fucking care, and I don't want to know. I just want to know did he murder Natalie Wood? That's the one thing I want to know. Which he did. I think he did. I'm saying I think he did because I don't want him listening to the podcast and be like, I'm going to sue this dude. I don't have anything. So that's what happened. A lot of actors were contracted by studios, and here's one thing that's really interesting. MGM, who made The Wizard of Oz, hired private investigators and watchers of the actress who played Dorothy. Because the actress who played Dorothy had to be skinny. She could not eat anything. She had to give this tiny, have this tiny figure. And so they would hire private investigators and people just to watch her so she wouldn't eat anything. Because they didn't want her gaining weight. They wanted her to be skinny. Really fucking skinny. So she would, I think, eat an apple. And they would have her smoke cigarettes. Because in their opinion, cigarettes were healthy. Dumbasses. So that's what was so fucking crazy about these studios. That they would hire all these agents and private investigators. Even have ties to the mob to clean up their messes. If an actor done something, they would hire, a fixer. I was going to say cleanup person, but a fixer. And this was in the case of Eddie Mannix. Eddie Mannix was, of course, married to Tony Mannix, and Tony Mannix was in a relationship with George Reeves, who played Superman. I don't know why I'm going through all this, telling all these stories and stuff. You see, this is what happens when I read too much history and too much crime stories. And by the way, I am listening to stuff on Audible. And Audible's not our sponsor. I wish. And I got this message from Amazon because I bought so much shit that somehow they gave me a free Audible book credit. And I was reading, I was going through samples and which one I want, and I ended up getting Batman. I forget the new Batman book that they did for DC Icons, and I really enjoyed that. I did listen to a sample of Harry Potter, and I sort of go J.K. Rowling rewrote it, and so everything's not continuity. But anyway, Eddie Mannix was rumored to be tied to organized crime, and a lot of people always made this I wouldn't say accusation, but assumption that Eddie Mannix had somebody kill George Reeves. A lot of people always made that assumption that did Eddie Mannix kill George, or did Tony Mannix ask Eddie to get somebody to teach George a lesson, but ended up shooting George? there's always these questions and assumptions and stuff. It is really really dark stuff. So for me, I really like the part where it's like Jack Napier was tied to organized crime. Wyatt refused negotiations with Napier even after several attempts were made on his life. As a result, the hitman known as Mr. Winter and his mob slaughtered the entire film crew on set in the middle of the desert. Byron barely survived, and he received severe head trauma, and woke up inside the costume with amnesia, believing himself to be Batman. So, that was the history of it. And I really like the story. Because it was really cool, because especially the Alfred in the story. So, and I will say this, I love the advertisement on the back of the book, because it made me laugh, because it has SpongeBob. And it's SpongeBob and Patrick drinking chocolate milk. So, anyway, this was part of the advertisement for the milk company for milk sponsors of SpongeBob's You Wish event on Nickelodeon. Tune in March 9th at 8 p.m. where you can choose the ending. I remember that. It was really fascinating back then, like how the advertisement was made by Viacom International in 2001. Damn, I feel old. And I love the ad. It also had a coupon thing for free Snickers Crunch, which I never got. I never used the coupon, which was pretty funny. I just never used the coupon for it, because it's you had to cut the coupon out, which would damage the cover, which I was just nope. And I wasn't going to carry the comic in there and be I want my free Snickers Crunch and stuff. So anyway, let's see. Bob Layton did the cover. Dick Dorino did the art, which I love the art of the cover. I love the artwork. It's so amazing to look at. So anyway, we're going to start off the comic, and we're going to do the narration. I'm kind of glad it did the history of the Hollywood thing, because it's kind of really cool. Tinseltown Terror, 1948, Southern California. The Batman. God, how I hate him. This is the Joker, by the way. We've got to stop this meddling man rodent. Batman is in a warehouse beating down several thugs. And this is the film serial, by the way. They're watching. Gee, wouldn't it be great if one of these goons put a slug between his pointy ears. It would have made my life a whole lot easier. Hang on, I love this part. Clank. A cable is hit. Oh golly, valiant boy. I think we're in trouble. Gosh, Batman. Looks like our tights are about to become flat as our dialogue. Ouch. I love that. I love how they use Hollywood terms in it, the dialogue's flat. Kind of like Captain Marvel. Enough, Frederick. Lights. I can't believe that moviegoers actually like this junk. You would think that they'd be satisfied with the serial garbage our studio grinds out. But no. They flock to the movies houses like mindless sheep and threaten to make this upstart filmmaker a force to be reckoned with. We can't allow an independent to break Arkham's stranglehold on the film distribution, Mr. Winter. Mr. Winter. So why don't we just make this Byron Wyatt disappear? Like the others, Mr. Napier. Frederick says, I would advise against doing anything questionable, Mr. Napier. May I remind you that the feds are currently investigating Arkham Pictures' ties to organized crime? By the way, I love that they use, like, names like Arkham. Especially for Jack Napier studios, like Arkham. I love that. The little details, I love. By the way, I love the little details. It's imperative to keep the studios active above board. I love the character Frederick, because Frederick kind of looks like he looks like Alfred from the 60s Batman TV show, by the way. I kind of like that he sort of looks like... He looks like Alfred from the 60s TV show, and they kind of use like the regular Alfred for the character at the end. So, not exciting, Mr. Percy. We can use all our legal and financial representatives to bore the poor SOB to death. Not quite what I meant, sir, Frederick says. You're a funny guy, Jack. No wonder they used to call you the Joker. Mr. Winter says, don't ever call me by that name. Do it again and you'll never get out of this lot alive. Do you understand? Napier points the gun and ready to fire at Mr. Winter. Understood, Mr. Napier. As long as you are aware of the same thing that applies. You ever stick that gat in my face again? I remember reading that, by the way. I couldn't help but notice that... I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Get Shorty, which stars Travolta. It was one of Travolta's best pictures. It was him, Gene Hackman, James Gandolfini, and Rene Russo, and Danny DeVito. Mr. Winter's always, to me, like, anytime I read the book, he looked like Mumbo from Get Shorty. Like, does anybody remember the Mumbo character in Get Shorty, where he like walks up these huge fucking flights of stairs, and he opens the door, it's like a surprise party, and he like holds his chest and he like falls down face first. Like, he looked like Mumbo, which kind of like made me laugh. Because he looked like Mumbo, because in the book he has a white hat, he has a long raincoat like on his shoulders, and he doesn't have his arms in the sleeves, and it just made me like laugh. It's just like, it looked like Mumbo. But anyway, it just made me, like, when I was a kid, when I read that, I was like, it looks like Mumbo. So I don't know how many times I read this book when I was a kid. Like, I remember I got in trouble one time. I was in school and I was like reading it, and I got like in trouble because I was like reading the book and stuff, like, because it wasn't a novel. It wasn't a novel to read. It was just, as the teacher put it, it was a fun book. It wasn't a novel to get, you know. And I was just like, I didn't, like, a lot of kids, I went to school with were like reading Harry Potter. Like they were all like talking about Harry Potter, like how great Harry Potter is, and like for me, I love Batman, and I remember it was just like, I think for me, I was just like, I loved the character so much, and it was just like I really missed seeing Batman on the big screen, because back then it was like Harry Potter, Spider-Man, like it was just like I kind of missed the character, and I love this book, and I was just like, I wish this book was like made to a film. But at the same time, like a lot of people wanted to see like Dark Knight Returns on the big screen. I think at the time they were talking about making Batman Year One, which we covered in an episode, and I know a lot of people have been like, when are you going to do a read narration of that one? Because I never got around to it, but someday, later down the road. But right now it's Hollywood night, and I remember just going like, I want this comic to be made into a film, because I love the story to it. It was kind of like the Hollywood, like they use like references to like the 60s Batman and the 89 Burton Batman. So anyway, I love this name that they use for... Oh man, we gotta restart. The computer's gonna restart. Shit. Listen, I'm gonna like stop right here. We're gonna come back to do the live thing, because my fucking computer decides it wants to restart and update. So anyway, we're gonna pick it up after this one. I will be right back. I fucking hate my computer. Anyway, I'll be right back. I promise.